to the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Relentless!
With Adam Kifer. Follow your path to success alongside icons and industry leaders in martial arts, fitness, and more.
Let's go!
This is the Relentless CEO Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Relentless CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Kifer. So glad you guys came back to join us. Today we are talking about one of my favorite entrepreneurs and marketers in history, David Ogilvy. If you're not familiar with David Ogilvy, maybe you've heard of the show Mad Men. A lot of what you see in Mad Men was based around David Ogilvy. Even though Don Draper is not supposed to be David Ogilvy in the show, a lot of what you see as far as what they're doing in an advertising agency is similar to the things that happened during that time at Ogilvy and Mather Advertising. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about today, because I'm so fascinated and frankly obsessed with David Ogilvy, is I want to talk about some of my favorite lessons from him and actually how we can apply that to the membership business world in both fitness and martial arts. So today we're going to be talking about Ogilvy on martial arts. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to use my notes today to sort of help us navigate this. I want to go over a few of my favorite quotes from him that I think really stand out and actually transfer over to any industry, not just marketing and advertising. First one, in the best establishments, promises are always kept, regardless of what it may cost in agony and overtime. That is damn powerful. Ogilvy was big on making sure that he was always speaking the truth in his advertising, that he was using facts to help sell the product. And it makes total sense that he's also saying, hey, if we make a promise, it's on us no matter what to hold our end of the bargain up. So that means overtime, that means agony, that means no sleep. Guess what? We're going to do whatever we need to make sure that we come through for our client. So when we start thinking about this in the terms of membership businesses and martial arts and fitness, like what does that mean that regardless of agony or overtime, we're going to fulfill the promises that we made to our members, our athletes, our students? So if we think about our marketing, for example, what is your marketing promising your audience? What is your marketing promising your community? And then if we back up a little bit on the back end, the fulfillment side, what are we actually doing to keep those promises and to show repeatedly to the parents that enrolled at your school or the members at your gym that we are going to fulfill and continue to fulfill those promises down the road? I know a lot of people that I talk to that are having issues with keeping members for a long period of time. Part of the reason they have issues is because they stop fulfilling the promise that they made in the marketing, and then people tend to fall off because they're not seeing the character development happen in a martial arts school. They're not seeing the fitness gains mentioned in the advertising. There's a disconnect between it all. And as leaders and CEOs on our side, the way that we can look at this quote is like, hey, if we promise our team something, if we tell our team something, like regardless of agony or overtime, are we actually fulfilling that promise? Are we upholding that? And I'm sure I fail at that all the time too, and I'm sure a lot of us do, but it's a good thing to keep in mind because we want to make sure that we're leading by example, that we're showing integrity on a daily basis. And I think this quote alone says a lot about Ogilvy's character, and it's something that we can definitely learn from. The second one, a great company is a lengthened shadow of a great individual. Listen to that one more time. A great company is a lengthened shadow of a great individual. The way he writes is like so amazing. But what he's saying is like your company is a representation of you, right? So if you are a great person, like, and you have a great company, that's a representation of you and your character and who you are and how you live your life on a daily basis. I think, especially with the businesses that we are in, character is so important right now. And I feel like if you have people on your team that don't have the right character, you have to remove them right away, okay? Because they're going to become toxic, they're going to become a cancer, and they can absolutely tear down a well-established business just by having the wrong value system and the wrong or no character traits in a person that's in your business. So I know a lot of times we want to hire based on skill, okay? But really, talent doesn't matter if the attitude is terrible, okay? I've had employees that were very, very greatly skilled, but they had an asshole personality, and it just wasn't a good mesh for the team that they were on. So when we're thinking about this, my question for you guys is, number one, do you have good character? Number two, is your company a reflection of that good character? And I think a lot of times we see this with like larger companies online where you see the company starting to slide downhill for a little bit and slide downhill, and then you start to find out that the CEO is doing something illegal or in trouble or whatever it might be, and you start to see these cracks start to form, right? So for us, let's just make sure that we do our best to stand up and live life like we're supposed to, live life like we teach our students and our athletes and our members. And the more we do that, the more your company is going to be a representation of that on a daily basis, right? All right, let's move on. Number three. This one's going to hurt some people. You can't save souls in an empty church. Guess what? You can't change lives in an empty martial arts school. Can't change lives in an empty fitness center. I think if we go back to like the E-Myth story for a little bit, okay, most of us that got in this business, we got into it because we had a passion for martial arts, we had a passion for fitness, okay, and we wanted to change other people's lives in the same way that our life was changed through these activities, right? And I admire the hell out of that, and I love it, but that's also not an excuse to not understand the business side. Okay, I think a lot of us give ourselves a way out of like not having to learn the business side or not having to know our numbers or not having to know the marketing because we're like, I just do martial arts, I just do fitness, and I just do this, and you try and stay in your lane, but the thing is your school is not growing, your studio is not growing. You cannot make a massive impact in an empty martial arts school. You can't make a massive impact in an empty gym, which is him pretty much saying you have to not just be driven on the trade, you have to be driven on the business and the marketing so that you can change more lives, you can impact more people. That's why when I hear martial arts school owners say, well, the money doesn't matter, it's not about money. No, it is about money. You are running a business, and the way that you make a bigger impact is by making more money, which is getting more people in your facility so that you can change more lives, okay? I love that people want to be passionate and make an impact, but you're lying to yourself if you think that you're making a massive impact and you have an empty martial arts school or you have an empty fitness studio. I also know a marketing company that can help you to change that. Just my 2 cents. All right. Ogilvy, I love this quote, especially when it comes to marketing. Tell the truth and make it interesting. Tell the truth and make it interesting. There's so many ads I see right now, and not necessarily martial arts ads, but like for other services in the martial arts industry that promise these grandiose results, like get 30 new students in a week. And then everyone I talk to that goes and uses these companies, they're like, yeah, not even close, bro. Like not even close to what they promised. And you're seeing these are the companies that disappear after like 6 months. You don't see these companies stay established because they are just throwing outrageous guarantees and promises out there, hoping to pull people in the front end and not even thinking about how they're going to back that up or fulfill that. And even when I first got into the agency industry, the thing I got told constantly was like, you need to have like a solid guarantee that just gets people excited and you want to get them in the door. And one of the first mentors I had in the agency world was like, yeah, why don't you do like, you guarantee 40 new students in like 2 weeks? And I was like, because that's not truthful. The only way that's happening is if they're spending like $7,000 like in that 2 week span on advertising, and they're doing digital, they're doing direct mail, they're doing this, and this. That's how that would happen. So me putting that in my advertising is not a true representation of what the company can actually do. It might get a lot of interest, it might get a lot of eyes and attention on it, but it doesn't fall in line with my core values of promising something that I know is impossible to fulfill, especially on the budget of most small businesses, martial arts schools, and fitness studios. So for us, it can get easy, especially when we get really into looking at other people's ads and stuff, and we see these big promises and things. It can be really easy to start stretching the truth. And then the next ad you write, you stretch that truth a little more and a little more and a little more until that truth isn't even existent anymore. Now it's just a flat out lie. So it's important to make sure that we stay humble in what we say and that the words that we're using are truthful to what we can actually fulfill and what we can actually do. And for the fitness industry, I think we see that a lot too, where it's like you'll see a before and after photo and that person never even went to that gym, but they're just using it to market it. And then you have people coming in expecting to see that same transformation and it's not happening. And that's why part of why you see the FTC really starting to crack down on a lot of different businesses and companies right now, including small businesses, is because they are promising results that aren't possible or are only possible for a small percentage of their members. So just make sure you guys are aware of that. I'm not saying you can't use before and after images in advertising. I use them for fitness, but we also verify that they're from that actual gym, that there's a disclaimer on the bottom that says results are not typical and are based on effort, diet, consistent training, all of that. And Facebook honestly will disapprove your ads if you don't have that on your before and after photos. And then also like the FTC requires a disclaimer on those photos anyway, because at your gym that's not a representation of the average person walking in. So there has to be some sort of disclaimer. Next, if you can make yourself indispensable to a client, you can never be fired. If you can make yourself indispensable to a client, you can never be fired. My question for us is, what are we doing intentionally to become indispensable to our members? What are the things that we're doing? What impact are we making in their life that we would be the last thing that they would ever think of canceling? And are we making enough of an impact? I think one of the things that I've really been leaning towards and probably executing this next month is getting rid of the 2 class per week like stigma of the martial arts industry and testing out a 3 times and an unlimited time, because I want them to be more involved. I want this to be more ingrained in their everyday life, and I want them in the gym more, because if they're in the gym more, they're going to get results faster, right? So that's part of it. But the other part of it is, what are we doing on a daily basis in our studios to actually get our members and our students and our athletes to think about us and think about their training when they're not even in the facility? How are we doing that? Like, one of the things that we do with our life skill program for our martial arts schools is they have missions they have to do at home. And those missions go towards their next belt, and they're actually demonstrating the character development traits that we're teaching them in their classes at home. And now mom and dad are seeing that progress. And a great example, we were at dinner last night after work, and my wife was talking with Kelly, and she's like, you know what? Right now they're working on goal setting at our school, and they have this 21-day habit challenge they have to do, where they pick, they can play a musical instrument every day, they can practice their martial arts every day, they can do fitness every day. They have a few different options. So one of my sons chose 10 push-ups every day, and the other one chose playing the piano for 15 minutes a day. And my wife was commenting, it's only been about like 13 or 14 days in a row right now, but she's like, Grayson was playing the piano today, and he's gotten so good in the last 2 weeks because of that challenge. Those are the conversations we want happening outside of your facility. We want mom and dad at the dinner table, and dad being like, man, he's been getting so good at this. Like, he must be practicing more, right? And then mom's like, yeah, it's because of the 21-day like habit building challenge that Move Martial Arts is doing. That's what we want to happen, because now they're talking and seeing the value of what you do outside of your facility. Also, at the same time, it is helping you to do a better job of fulfilling those promises in your marketing, because now the parents are actually seeing that traction happen at home. So I hope that helps you guys to think a little bit differently and think outside of the box. But my suggestion to all of you would be, get your team together and just like brainstorm. Hey guys, I want us to think, what are some things that we can do to make us so valuable to our clients that we become indispensable? Like, so ingrained in our clients or our athletes or our students' lives that they would never ever think about getting rid of us if bills got tight, if money got tight. Like, we're the last thing they're looking at to get rid of. And then it becomes more than just punches or kicks. It becomes more than just high-fiving kids. It becomes about creating real connections and making lasting impacts with the people that we're working with. So let's jump into next one of David Ogilvy's lists. So Ogilvy was a giant list writer. This is from his book, The Unpublished David Ogilvy, which the book itself is a cool story. All of his team members at Ogilvy and Mather went and took his memos, his lists, everything that they enjoyed that he wrote, and they put it into a book, and they gave it to him for his 70th birthday. And that's what The Unpublished David Ogilvy is. David Ogilvy wrote daily, so much that after he moved out of the country and was writing letters back to the office, that the local post office in the town had to upgrade their post office because he was sending so much mail to his office. Even the postmaster general at that post office got a promotion because of how much the volume increased in their mailroom. So that's how much of a writer this dude is. So you can imagine they probably had tons of different lists and letters and everything to use, telegrams, to build this book. But this is Ogilvy's qualifications I look for in our leaders. And he's got 10 things he lists on here. So first one, high standards of personal ethics. Okay, we saw that stated earlier when he's like, hey, your advertising should be truthful and interesting. We saw it when he said a great company is a lengthened shadow of the person running it. He was big on doing the right thing. And one of the things that I admire most about Ogilvy is how true he stayed to his values consistently. Okay, you can read any of his books, Ogilvy on Advertising, Confessions of an Advertising Man. He's got a bunch of them. But you can read any of his books, and the consistent thing is how confident he is in sticking by his values. And to me, that in itself is a great trait of a leader. Okay, it is easy as you make more money to become corruptible. It is easy as you make more money to get into bad habits and things. So that the number one thing on his list is high standards of personal ethics. That gives me a ton of respect for him. And for you guys, I think as we go through this list, a good exercise I would do is create your own list of what are the things I look for in leaders for our company. Like what are the attributes I want them to have? So now when you start looking for people to fill that role, you already have in your mind the exact qualities that you're looking for. Number 2 on this is big people without pettiness. So big people without pettiness. So he wants people that have big personalities, that have big energy, but aren't petty, that aren't going to be getting down on other people. They're not going to let their big personality turn into an ego, right? Number 3, guts under pressure, resilience in defeat. I fucking love this. If you're a leader, you have to look at pressure as a privilege because pressure is going to come from every single angle the more successful you get. I was talking with Taylor Welch last month, who's one of my business mentors, and one of the things he was saying is, he's like, hey, you're doing a good job growing, but as you continue growing, guess what? Everyone's going to try and sue you. And I was like, what do you mean everyone? He goes, it's a thing. He's like, the more money you make, the more opportunity people see to sue you. So he's like, we need to start talking about asset protection. So that way, as you continue to grow, all of your assets are protected. And the interesting thing is just hearing that and knowing that that's what happened as you continue to grow and become more successful and make more money makes this quote even more important. Guts under pressure, resilience in defeat. I always go back to Tim Grover's book, Relentless. Like when we talk about the cleaner is the guy that wants the ball in the fourth quarter with 5 seconds on the clock, wants to make the game-winning shot, and will yell at you if you do not give him the ball to make that game-winning shot. Think Kobe Bryant, think Michael Jordan. Guts under pressure. Okay, and even in defeat, you bounce back. You keep going. I saw a cool video yesterday of Michael Jordan, and he was talking at one of his basketball camps, and he was addressing the parents. And he said, too many parents get caught up on whether their kids make a shot or not. And he goes, there's only 2 outcomes when you shoot the ball. You make it or you don't. He goes, it's really quite simple. But he goes, the fact that your kids didn't make a shot doesn't mean that they are a bad basketball player, they lost the game, that you should be upset with them. He goes, because even when I miss a shot, he goes, the next game I get to start over again. And the next game I get to have a better chance of making that shot. Resilience in defeat, right? So for us, defeat might look like a rut that we're in. Defeat might look like a bad month for our business. But do you have resilience in that defeat, or do you just let yourself look defeated, feel defeated, sound defeated? Okay, we have to be resilient as business owners. So a lot of resilient business owners during the pandemic that refused to let the pandemic close their business down. My question for you is, do we still have that same resilience right now? Or have we moved past that resilience that we built up during the pandemic? I'm hoping everyone still has it. Okay, brilliant brains, not safe plotters. Brilliant brains, not safe plotters. So he likes people that are risky. He likes people that think outside the box. He doesn't like people that play it safe when it comes to ideas and creativity. And I love this too, because I think you have to be able to find the right people that, of course, have a personality that fits your culture, but also are thought leaders. And as I continue to build companies, I think one of the hardest personality types to find are thought leaders. And it's most likely because they're probably already working somewhere else, first of all, because they are hard to find. And also, they usually demand a higher salary. So yeah, they're gonna be a little bit harder to find. You're probably gonna have to pay them more to get that thought leader. I talked with another agency owner that's a friend of mine not too long ago, and he was pretty much saying, he's got a super successful business, but he was saying the thing that we're missing is like, I'm the only thought leader in the business. He's like, I need someone like you. I need someone that can come in and just like come up with new ideas, come up with creative ways to grow the business, creative ways to get our clients better results. And I think for us, we don't always look at that. A lot of times in general, I see small business owners hiring based on potential instead of experience. And it's easy to hire based on potential, especially in the martial arts industry, because we train these kids from such a young age that we've seen kids that didn't have the physical skill, but they had like the drive and the mental toughness and the right attitude, and they turned into amazing martial arts athletes, and we saw that potential in them. And I think that becomes a default for a lot of martial arts school owners, where they start to hire just based on potential. We got to remember, there's like different seasons of your business. If I have all the right key players in place, then yeah, go ahead and start hiring for potential. Start finding people that have like that spark in their eye that you think you can mold them into something. But if you don't have your key players in place, you can't just hire based on potential. Because when you do that, now you have a bunch of 50-50s. Like, you're really hoping they kick ass. You're going to pour your energy and training into them. But again, potential is a double-edged sword. I always hated when people told me that I had potential, because that was hearing, you can probably do a lot of things, great things, but you're not doing it yet. And I never want to hear that I have potential. I want to hear that I'm kicking ass. So for us, what are we hiring for? Are we trying to find the people that can just come in and kick ass right out of the gate? Or are we trying to find people that are charcoal now and could become a diamond later, but they could also become a chunk of coal later as well, and stay that way? Number 5 on Ogilvy's list for leaders, a capacity for hard work and midnight oil. So he wants people that have work ethic. He wants people that aren't going to be afraid to stay late or work late if they need to fulfill their promise. And we just talked about this earlier with his other quote of, regardless of agony or overtime, we're going to keep our promise. So similar themes you're seeing here. And again, it goes back to Ogilvy keeping similar values across everything he writes. Charisma, charm, and persuasiveness. This is so important for membership businesses. You need the person at the front desk that has the biggest smile on their face, that has energy that's contagious when people walk into the facility. You need a martial arts instructor or a fitness trainer on the floor that just brightens up the room with their energy, that makes people smile, that makes people feel good even when they're getting a hard workout. Goes back to hiring on personality, a little bit more than skill there, right? A streak of unorthodoxy, creative innovators. I get asked all the time, Adam, I've been teaching and on the floor for like 25 years in my martial arts school. How do I get off the floor? How do I get out of my school and get other people running it? Well, I think part of it is you need people, yes, that buy into your systems, your philosophy, your culture. But you also need people that can creatively problem solve as well in your business. Because if you're the only person that can solve problems, if you're the only person that can look at the numbers, see what's wrong, and then make a plan to fix it, it's going to be really hard to replace yourself. Like, I'm so grateful we have Kelly at the office, because to me, she is a problem solver. She's a thought leader. And there's times that there'll be problems that I don't even know about that she solves. And that makes my life so much easier. Same thing at your martial arts school. Do you have people that can solve problems without you? If not, are you just keeping them because of potential, or are you keeping them because they are the right person for that role? Okay, number 8, the courage to make tough decisions. This is probably my favorite one on the list, because you have to not only make tough decisions when you're a leader, you have to have tough conversations when you're a leader. You have to hold your team accountable when you're a leader. We did one-on-ones with one of the companies, and one of the things I was asking them was just, hey, how do you feel about the manager? How do you feel like the culture is going? And consistently I was hearing, man, we love the manager, great person, great ethics, but they avoid hard conversations. They avoid tough decisions because they want to be liked by everyone. You don't want a people pleaser as your manager. Okay, you need someone that when there's a parent that is super disruptive, disrespectful, all of that, that is okay saying, hey, you know what? We're probably not a good fit for each other. We're going to go ahead and cancel your membership, refund you last month, and I wish you guys the best, and I hope you find a martial arts school that fits you guys better. You need that. Okay, you need the hard conversations on the floor when the kid's being disrespectful to his parents at home. Okay, and you can call that kid out professionally and respectfully on their bullshit in front of their parent, and be that second voice so that parent feels that you are irreplaceable, right? You need the tough conversations for your manager to be able to sit down and just address an issue with a team member without having to sugarcoat it and overthink it or put it off till tomorrow. But they just sit down today and be like, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's the feedback that we're getting. I know this isn't you. We need to change this, and we need to do better moving forward. And this is how we're going to do it. They need that. We have a general rule in our martial arts schools that if you're not hitting goals for 90 days and you're the manager, you're going to get fired. You're getting replaced. That's just how it is. Okay. And the number of business owners that I talk to that have had a manager for like 2 years, and in that 2 years, the manager has never hit a monthly goal, they're driving your business into the ground. You need a new manager in that case. Okay, you need someone that's growing the business and pushing it forward. I always tell our team members, especially the martial arts school, I said, hey, you guys need to think of the relationship of all of us as a team, like a sports team. Okay, and I'm the coach, right? So as the coach, my job is to find the best player for every position, because that's what makes the whole team and the whole company better. Your jobs are to make sure that I can never find someone better than you to replace you with. And I want all of my team members to think about that. Like when they're working, like, am I doing work at the highest quality level in such a way that I want to make sure that no one can ever replace me in what I'm doing? And I think that's something that was innately built into me when I worked, and I love kickboxing and Perella, when I worked in Chicago. Like, I always wanted to be so valuable to whatever company I was working with that I would be impossible to replace. It would be so hard to find someone better than me. And I'm not saying that because I have a big ego or I'm cocky. I just am very confident in my skill set. I'm confident in my ability. And I know that I will outwork anyone that you put next to me. It's as simple as that. Inspiring enthusiasts with thrust and gusto. So he wants people that are ambitious. He wants people that are energetic, that have a passion for what they do. We do a lot of sales training in our mastermind, and a lot of times when I'm listening, like to a recording of a sales call, I'll listen, and the person will be on script really, really well. They'll be saying all the right words, but when I talk to the owner, they're only closing at like 50%, and I can't figure it out. And 9 times out of 10, what's missing is passion and conviction in what they're saying. It doesn't sound like the person that's talking actually believes what they're talking about. Which, if the person doing sales at your facility does not have conviction and passion as they speak, how is the person listening going to actually believe that that's the right place for them to send their kid to? The only way the parent believes that your program is right is if you sound like you know that the program is right and you have an untethered belief in this is the program that's going to change your kid's life. and you should be here because of X, Y, and Z. When you have that passion, it becomes contagious. Sales becomes so much easier. Like, I've always been good at selling, but I've never had a selling skill set. And I know that might sound counterintuitive, but what that means is I was never the guy that was good at overcoming objections. I didn't have like the best sales script when I was doing sales before, but I would always close 90% or higher. And the reason I closed 90% or higher is because I was passionate. I believed in what I was saying. I knew that it would change their life. I knew it would make them better. And when parents hear that passion, they want to have their kids follow you. They want to have their kids be around you more, because obviously if you're that passionate about it, it's because you've seen people's lives get changed through it. And that's going to give them a lot more confidence in their decision to buy. Number 10, a sense of humor. I think this is a must in all of my companies. They have to not be robots. They have to have personality. I think for me as a leader, I use humor a lot. In our office, sometimes it's like horrible dad jokes and I hear everyone in the office groan. Sometimes it's borderline inappropriate, but I also read the room. And for our hiring, and I'm talking about Relentless, for our hiring, one of our questions, we ask them if they're okay around cursing, because obviously I work here. But sense of humor is important. Like, I want my team members loving their work. I want them happy when they're here. If I go out in the office area and it like just seems like tense or stressful, I try and say something stupid or self-deprecating to make sure that I can get everyone to smile a little bit, everyone to laugh a little bit. And I just sort of figured out if I just make fun of myself, everyone laughs. So that's a good go-to. But does your team have personality? You guys have to remember that your instructors and your trainers and your coaches, they have to be likable people. No one's going to want to take their class if they have no personality. No one's going to want to take their class if they're a robot. They need to be likable. It's part of the job position. All right. You're not going to be working with a personal trainer that you don't like, that has a dull personality, that just stands there. Like, I remember I had like one of my favorite barbers when I was in New York, because the dude just had a great personality. He did a good job cutting my hair, but he had a great personality. I have not found that like same barber out in Arizona. The barbers in Arizona, they don't say a freaking word while they cut your hair. They just like shut up and sit forward, and you're like, all right, I guess this is how it is now. But use this as an example for how to come up with you guys' list of leadership qualities that you look for. Maybe you're going to use this as an example of maybe how can I teach this to our leadership team at our school. The next one I wanted to go over and not spend as much time on, but one of the things that I loved about Ogilvy is he would teach his vulnerabilities to his team. He would teach his team how to best work with him. And he inspired me. I did a memo for our team maybe a month ago or so of the best ways to work with Adam. And it was pretty much like a list of like, hey, these are what other former employees and current employees have said about working for me, and tips that they would give someone new working with me. This is a list of all of the stuff I'm terrible at and all my shortcomings. So I put that together. The reason I did is because I realized running 3 or 4 companies, like, I don't get a lot of one-on-one time with a lot of my employees. So for me, I read Ogilvy talking about this, and I was like, oh, this would be a good way to just help get people to know like how I work, what I look for, what my standards are, and that type of thing. And then what I did is I reached out to a bunch of old employees and I said, hey, give me 5 tips that you would give someone on ways to best work with me, like things that they might not know going into it. And then I included that in there as well. And then the cool thing is when we onboard new employees, Kelly can give them this list and be like, all right, CEO is Adam. I want you to read through this. He actually wrote this himself of the best ways to work with him, and got feedback from former employees as well. So that way, you know, it's not just him talking about himself, and it's actual things coming from people that have actually worked with him successfully. But an account manager wrote to David Ogilvy wondering what he considered his worst shortcomings. And I thought this was interesting. And I think I'm going to challenge everyone on this call, your next staff meeting, to do this with your team, where you just give them your biggest shortcomings and then ask them if they notice any more. So that way, you know what you need to work on. He says, I'm intolerant of mediocrity and laziness. Damn straight, and you should be. High standards. I fritter away too much time on things which aren't important. That to me is probably one of the most vulnerable things on this list, because I feel like people in leadership roles tend to want to make themselves look like better leaders than they actually are. And I'm sure I've been guilty of this before as well, but we don't like sharing our vulnerabilities for some reason because we feel like people are going to see us as less or something like that. And I think it's the opposite, because I think, especially in martial arts schools, like if you guys think, a lot of you guys have instructors that have been with you for years, and maybe you start teaching them like when they were a white belt and they've grown up through the system and everything. And the thing that we don't always realize is that when they come up through the martial arts school and then end up working for us, they see you sort of up on this pedestal compared to what the normal person sees you as. And what that does is it creates sort of a disconnect between the relationship building between both people, because the one person looks up to the other so much that they don't really see them as a human, which means if you make mistakes and stuff, they're going to be so damn surprised. It also makes them feel like they can't approach you the same way as other people. So when you start showing that you're vulnerable in front of your team, and you start sharing your vulnerabilities with the team, taking ownership as part of this too when you fuck up. Okay, but when you start to do these things, it helps your team to connect with you more. Okay, because they see you as a human. Like, we're all flawed individuals. We're all flawed beings. Okay, so the more you actually share those things with your team, the more that they're going to be willing to share with you and open up to you. So I love that Ogilvy listed that on here. Fritter away too much time on things which aren't important. Like everyone of my age, I talk too much about the past. Okay, boomer. It's just it's fun little like facts about Ogilvy. I've always funked firing people who needed to be fired. I think he meant flunked. So he's saying, hey, I always kept people too long. I will admit that's one of my downfalls as well. Like the number of people that have been like, man, you trust people too much, or you give people too many second chances. Like, I'm working on it. I'm trying to be more ruthless. I'm afraid of flying and go to ridiculous lengths to avoid it. When I was creative head in New York, I wrote too much of the advertising myself. How many of us in our business are doing too much of the stuff ourselves because we're afraid to give up control? Right? A lot of times when we don't give up control, we don't give opportunities for others to grow into their role or develop new skill sets. So I just want you guys to think about, like, what right now are you holding on to just because you want to hold on to it, and not because it actually benefits the company or benefits your team. I know nothing about finance. Just black and white. Like, hey, I suck at this, dude. I changed my mind about advertising and about people. I don't think that's a weakness, though. I think advertising evolves over time, and you're going to change your perspective on advertising. If you go back and watch one of my videos from 5 years ago, I was probably giving some tips in marketing that I would never give now. But also they may have worked at that time, and that's probably why I was giving them. So that evolves. I also think people, it's totally okay to change your mind about people. How many people have been in your inner circle that didn't deserve to be in your inner circle, that you had to make a pivot on? You had to change your mind about them because they either were a detriment to the inner circle or they weren't serving the inner circle. I think this year you guys will hear some things about me trimming the hedges on our inner circle as well. But that's really done to protect yourself, to protect your own growth, to protect your own psyche, to protect the people you care about too. Because you get the wrong person in your inner circle, like that can have a terrible effect on your team members, your family, like anyone that's in that realm, that's in that orbit, can be affected by that. So for us, when we start to see negative shit happen with people in our inner circle, or they're not making good choices, they're not doing what's right, like it's time to separate and be unapologetic about separating. Next one on this list, number 9, I am candid to the point of indiscretion. My wife would say that about me as well, and that I do it often very loudly. Candid to the point of indiscretion. If you guys are a super direct person when you speak, like that's something you should tell your team. That's something they should know coming out of the gate. So that way it doesn't come off as brash or harsh when you're talking to them, and they know what to expect. I would love to see our industry give this list to their whole team. Like, if you guys are going to do that, could you just comment below and number one, let us know that you're going to do it, but then come back and let us know the feedback and let us know how the team took it, because it's going to encourage other martial arts school owners, other fitness studio owners to do the same thing and create a better connection with their team. I see too many sides to every argument. I can really freaking identify to that. I am overly impressed by physical beauty. I guess that could be a weakness. Yep. I have a low threshold of boredom. It's funny, I was reading a letter that Ogilvy wrote to someone. Someone was flying Ogilvy out to speak at their event, and he wrote a letter of all the things he doesn't want to do when he goes to travel. And he put on there, he's like, hey, I don't want you to walk me into the train station when you leave. Please just let me leave on my own. He goes, if we go to a restaurant, I need to eat immediately. I don't want to drink first. He goes, all I want is food, because I'm very impatient when I want to eat. And it's funny because that whole letter just like goes right to, he has a low threshold of boredom. Like he wants energetic. He wants people that have enthusiasm, people that have creativeness and innovation. And a guy this creative, it makes total sense why he hates boredom. Hopefully this list and the previous list on leaders helped you guys. I would recommend 3 of Ogilvy's books right out of the gate if you haven't read them. Number 1 is good for every business owner, like regardless what industry you're in. Confessions of an Advertising Man. Yes, there's a lot of talk about marketing, but really this is sort of his philosophy on running a business, his philosophy on hiring people, his philosophy on how he runs meetings, his work ethic, all of that. And it's actually a good read. It's more like a story-focused read, in my opinion. But there's some great stories in there. The second on the list I don't have with me, but it's Ogilvy on advertising. That to me is like the marketing Bible, that and Claude Hopkins' scientific advertising. Ogilvy on advertising, he goes through and shows a lot of examples of the ads he wrote, the ad copy that he wrote for those ads, his rules for coming up with big ideas, his rules for copywriting. To me, it is a must read for anyone that wants to be good at marketing. Any book you read now by like Alex Hormozy, Russell Brunson, any of those guys, a lot of it was influenced by Ogilvy and what he was doing first. The other one, which I was reading the list out of, is the unpublished David Ogilvy. And that's the one that his team compiled a lot of his writings for him as a 70th birthday present. I love Ogilvy. I'm obsessed with him. I study his stuff all the time. I listen to podcasts about him. There's just so much intriguing stuff to hear about him. Everything that, and his story is interesting too. He started working at a French restaurant that was a fine dining, high-end established restaurant. He talks about how the chef was like the typical stereotypical French chef that you could think of, that's like real snotty, nose up in the air, the highest standards in the world. And because he had the highest standards in the world, he attracted the highest level of talent as well. So he's got some good stories about that. He also has stories about working with British intelligence, which is crazy since he was a marketer. The guy that he worked for in British intelligence is who the James Bond novels are actually based off of. So that's like a cool ass story. And then Ogilvy also talks about how he went from being a door-to-door stove salesman to ending up going into advertising, writing one of the best-selling sales books of all time about how to sell the ovens and stoves that he was selling door to door, and then ended up growing his agency. And the crazy thing is he created a list of the top 10 clients he wanted. By the time he was like out of his agency, he had landed all 10 of those clients, including Shell Oil and Rolls-Royce. And the cool thing is Ogilvy Advertising is still around to this day. They still have Rolls-Royce as a client, which goes right back to Ogilvy saying, if you deliver enough value to your client, you will be indispensable in their eyes. And the fact that they've kept Rolls-Royce as a client since the 1940s is pretty damn impressive. I hope you guys got some great lessons from today and some takeaways. Remember, comment below any questions you have. Comment below your biggest insight from today, and continue to like and share and follow for more.
We're unstoppable, to the top, we about to go. That CEO, I need to know the impact we about to grow. Competition comical, straight A1, we on the road. Money focus for the goal, tell them what they need to know. We unstoppable.